Loving Eliza by Ruth and Nordin, Chapter 9. John adjusted his tie for the 10th time. He hated this. He didn't want to go to the social gathering in town where people could eat and dance and talk. His parents used to drag him to those things when he was a child, but they let him stay home when he turned 15. And now someone else was dragging him. Okay, that wasn't necessarily true. He had asked Eliza to go with him, and she had agreed. This had been his choice. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled on his nice boots. No, this had not been his choice. Not really. Troy and old Willie wanted to take her. Then there was Buck, who usually farmed so much that he rarely came to town. Funny how he managed to make it to church to talk to Eliza after the service. John adjusted his tie again. It felt too tight. Frustrated, he yanked it off and threw it on the hardwood floor. He would be just fine in his green shirt, his black vest, and his denim pants. He rubbed his eyes. He still remembered when he was at the social gatherings when he was a child, and the other kids made fun of him. The adults didn't do anything to stop it, but they had to have known. He ended up spending all of his time in the corner of the room, watching the ascent of the moon and judging when the gathering would be over. Back then, all of his brothers had joined in the rounds of pulling jokes on him and laughing at his expense. As they got older, things did change. It wasn't until after their parents died that Aaron, Guy, and Sean had shaped up. But then this morning, when Aaron talked down to him like he was a child, John didn't want to have anything to do with any of them. So what if he had written to a mail-order bride on Troy's behalf? He picked one of the best ones that Aaron had read to him. If Troy would just leave Eliza alone when they went to church, he would have bothered writing the letter anyway. Not that it was much of a letter. He had kept it simple because he was still learning how to read and write. The words that he had used, he had shown them to Eliza first. Of course, she had had no idea what he was doing it for. She had thought he was just practicing. Sighing, he stood up and took the ring from his dresser. It had been too big for Eliza, but he had made the necessary adjustments to it. Now it fit right. If only she would put it on. He tucked the ring into his pocket. Ever the optimist. What made him think that tonight she would say yes? Still, she was right about him. He did not give up easily. He sensed that she enjoyed being with him. Just not enough to commit to him. Yet. He left the bedroom and walked through the kitchen. His stomach protested, but he mentally reminded it that there were plenty of food in these social gatherings in town. His stomach growled again, obviously not believing him. He shut the kitchen door behind him and looked up to see Eliza fiddling with a blue bow in her hair that went with her blue nice dress. He smiled. She looked so pretty. Then he frowned. No doubt the other men would think so too, and that was a problem. She turned and saw him. "Are you ready?" He shrugged and went to the horses. The horses looked healthy. Too bad. Now he couldn't claim they were sick. After he hooked them up to the wagon, he checked the wheels. Too bad the wagon was in good shape. Now he had no excuse to stay and keep her safely away from Troy, Willie, or Buck. Once again, she managed to hop into the wagon before he got around to her side. She spread her skirt around her and glanced at him. "I'm not dancing with anyone but you, I promise," she said. All right. That helped him feel a little better. He nodded and joined her. On the way there, she talked about how she looked forward to talking to Addie. "Frank will be there too," she added, "so we can talk to both of them. You like Frank." That was true, so he nodded. "It won't be so bad, John. Not if you look on the bright side." Well, she was going with him. He supposed that was a bright side. "That's what I try to do," she continued. "Look on the bright side. No matter how bad things get, there's always a bright side." Then she rambled on about things that let him tune her out. The closer to town he got, the more tense he became. When he finally pulled the wagon to a stop a block from the town hall where the festivities occurred, he gave one last look at the road out of town. 4 hours. He just had to get through 4 hours of this. Reluctant, he stepped down from the wagon and wondered why she bothered to let him help her down from it. As they strolled up to the group of people entering the building, old Willie waved to join them. John inwardly groaned, but followed Eliza as she approached him. "I didn't realize there were so many people in this town," she told old Willie. "Whenever there's food, people come scurrying out from the holes to find it," old Willie joked. She laughed. "You have a real sense of humor, Willie. That's refreshing. Life can get too serious sometimes." Willie blushed and waved his hand as if to dismiss the compliment. "Ah, shoot, Miss Sweet. That's awfully nice of you to say. Hello there, John. The Kendalls like that bed frame that you made for their little girl. They've been bragging on it so much that Carson's thinking of asking you to make them a cabinet for their kitchen." Eliza turned to John. "Well, that's wonderful. I told you that was a gorgeous bed frame, and all you did was shrug, as if it wasn't anything important. You do beautiful work." "A true statement," old Willie agreed. "You folks coming in to eat?" "You bet," she said. "This is a good excuse to get out of cooking." She glanced at John. "Not that I mind cooking. It's just nice to take a break from it." "You work her too hard out there, John." Old Willie chuckled and patted his shoulder. "Just kidding. I know you wouldn't overwork anyone." John was too nervous to smile to show his friend that he understood he was joking. He really wished old Willie would find someone other than Eliza to like. This town needed more women. He shifted from one foot to the other. "I think John's more ready to eat than I am," Eliza said. John followed her into the building. He was relieved when he realized that they would be sitting with Frank and Addie. At least he could relax during the supper. Afterwards, however, was another matter. Troy came up to them and asked her for a dance. "I told John that I would only dance with him," she replied as she took John's hand. Troy's gaze met John's, and John narrowed his eyes at him. "Come on, John," she said, and pulled on his hand. John obeyed and lumbered to the area set aside for couples to dance. He spotted the corner where he used to sit and hide. He used to watch the people dance, noting the way they laughed and smiled. Even now, people enjoyed themselves. The only difference was that he was out in the open for all to see. And as much as he hated that, he did like holding Eliza without her trying to find a reason to get out of his arms. If he hadn't noticed the way Troy glared at him, or how a couple of people in the room snickered and shook their heads at him, it wouldn't have been so bad. But he was aware of them. Acutely aware. He stepped on Eliza's foot and nearly tripped her. He quickly caught her by the arms and steadied her. She flung her hair over her shoulder. "It's all right. Maybe we should get something to drink." He nodded and walked to the table, where a big bowl of punch and a ladle waited for them. "How quaint! I heard of these, but I've never seen such grand display." She picked one of the cups up. "Whoever set out all these flowers and lacy napkins did a marvelous job." "Charity did that," a woman spoke up. They turned to see Bethany. "She learned to do this from where we came from," Bethany continued. "She did a fine job of it." Eliza scanned the room. "Where is she, anyway?" "The poor thing is sick to her stomach. It's because of the child, you know." "Oh, yes. Well, it's a shame she's missing this, especially when she took the time to set this out." "It'll be worth it," Bethany said. "Next year she'll be holding her own baby. There's no better joy than that." John thought he caught a flicker of sorrow in Eliza's eyes. "I suppose you're right," Eliza softly replied, before she picked up the ladle. Her hand slightly shook as she poured the red liquid into the cup. John took the cup and the ladle from her, so no more would splash onto the table. What had caused her unease? The talk of a baby? If she wanted a child, she could marry him, and then she could have one of her own. He paused. He hadn't tried that angle yet. Maybe he needed to get her thinking of babies. Eliza wiped her hands on a napkin. She's already decided on a name, Bethany said. Patrick for a boy and Patricia for a girl. Aren't those wonderful names? Yes, they are. Eliza took the cup John offered her and drank a sip. She sure is blessed. Well, Bethany began, perhaps you'll find someone to marry. I hear that Willie is a real sweetheart. Though he's a bit older than you, he's a stable, hard-working man. John gritted his teeth. Well, of course there's Buck, Bethany continued, if you don't mind a man who spends most of his time in the fields. That wouldn't do well for a woman who wants a lot of attention. You'd have to be willing to spend most of your time alone. Thankfully, Charity didn't end up with him. She loves to be pampered. Oh, I'm content with things as they are, Eliza said, before she took another sip. Maybe for now, Bethany argued, but the future is ahead of you. Even if you are nearing an unmarriageable age, you should keep that in mind. Oh, there's Troy Evans. Why, he works for Buck. The woman clapped her hands and giggled. What a small world. At any rate, you can choose any of them. Or there's me, John thought. I'm right in front of you, you old coot. If John could speak, that's exactly what he would tell Bethany. Let me introduce you to Chloe. You'll like her. Bethany grabbed Eliza's hand and started walking away. Eliza glanced back at John. I'll be right back, she assured him. John had a sinking feeling that Bethany would keep Eliza with her for longer than a moment. And he was right. After 5 minutes, he found his corner and sat down. Again, he watched everyone else. Eliza stood to the side with Bethany, Chloe, and Chloe's sister. Eliza kept looking back at him, and at one point, she motioned for him to join her. He refrained. Instead, he averted his gaze so that he could pretend that he had not seen her. He turned his attention to the window, noting that it was a clear night. It would be a good 2 hours before he could go home. He sighed and let his gaze fall back on Eliza, who laughed at something Chloe said. He hated being here. He hated being in town. He hated being alone. John? He looked over at his brother, Sean. Aaron and Guy said that you were here, Sean began, but I didn't believe them. Why are you hiding? We're not kids anymore. John rolled his eyes. Sean sat next to him. You look like you saw a ghost. Irritated, John crossed his arms and directed his attention to Eliza, who was still talking to the other women. So much for dancing with her, or coming so he could spend time with her. You need to relax, Sean said. I know how to make that happen, but we can't do it here. Come outside with me. John shook his head. He wanted to make sure Troy or old Willie did not go near Eliza. If one of them did, he planned to go up to her so they would back off. Only be gone for a minute, Sean insisted. It won't take long at all. Besides, this kind of thing relaxes me all the time. John thought about it, nodded, and strode out of the town hall so they could be alone. Interest piqued, he watched as his brother pulled something from his jacket pocket. It was a flask. Take a good drink of this, Sean said. In no time at all, you'll feel good. John accepted the flask, but pointed to it. It's moonshine, Sean told him. Jerry makes it. John had heard the term before, but he couldn't quite recall where. It's good for nerves, Sean explained. Jerry seemed like a good man. At least he did not make fun of him, and he had no reason to distrust John. He nodded and drank from it. It had an odd taste, though it wasn't exactly bad. He took another drink and decided that it tasted fine. Don't gulp it all down, Sean warned. You just want to relax, not get drunk. I think I saw him come out here, Guy said. Sean motioned for John to hide the flask, so John slipped it into his back pocket and turned to the entrance of the town hall. John noticed a warming sensation spread over his face. Was that because they were almost caught, or was it because of the moonshine? Aaron and Guy came into John's viewing range. What are you two doing out here? Aaron asked, sounding suspicious. Just taking in the fresh air, Sean replied. Got a problem with that?" "No," Aaron said. "We came to ask if you wanted to play poker." "All right, but this time I'm quitting when I get to my last penny," Sean replied. "No one forced you to lose all your money last time," Guy said. "Well, come on. We're about to start a game." John hated this. Of course they would not invite him. They never did. Sean patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry. In no time at all, you'll feel better." Sean ran into the building with Guy and Aaron. John stood there for a minute, waiting for the moonshine to do its trick, but he didn't feel relaxed at all. Maybe he needed more of it to work. He pulled it out of his pocket and drank more. The flask was practically full. He wondered how much of this liquid it took to take effect. Deciding that his tension was pretty severe, he drank the whole thing. He waited until his muscles began to relax before he sauntered back into the place.